Good afternoon. My name is Tebogo Tamaga. I'll be the facilitator for your customer service excellence and emotional intelligence. From a company called TT Endeavor Training, we specialize in soft skills training, but also dealing with leadership training. I'll be representing the Estate Agency Affairs Board, and I'll be taking through the session. But before we start with the session, I just want to touch a little bit on what we'll be covering during the session. We'll be looking at two aspects, which is emotional intelligence and also customer service excellence. Now, the first part of the session talks about emotional intelligence. The Latin definition of the word emotions is applying movement to core feelings. Now, emotional intelligence is the capacity for recognizing your own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions in ourselves and in our relationships. Extensive studies and research has been conducted to determine the importance of intellectual quotient, which is normally known as IQ, as an instrument for gauging people's potential for success. Now, IQ on its own does not guarantee success, and this has been proven over decades. Emotional intelligence incorporates the following aspects, which are the key dimensions of the emotional intelligence, which is called EQ. 1, it's personal intelligence. 2, it's social intelligence. And 3, innovative and survival skills. The components of emotional intelligence would include 5 key elements. First is self-awareness. That is the ability to recognize and understand your own moods and your own emotions. Now, understanding your feelings, your own moods, your own emotions enables you to deal better with difficulties or with challenging situations that you may come across. Second is self-regulation. This is the ability to control disruptive moods, to suspend judgment, and to think before you act. The third one is motivation. That's the pursuance of goals with energy and persistence. We know that we live in a fast-changing environment, a fast-paced world, and sometimes we lose our inspiration and we lose our motivation. But with a good sound of EQ, which is emotional intelligence, you're able to pick your energy levels and with persistence and still aspire for your goals. The fourth one is empathy. That is the ability to understand the emotional makeup of others. And the fifth one is your social skills, which is the ability to build a rapport with others. Now, in a customer-facing environment, you know that building relationships and building rapport is important. Now, with a basic foundation of emotional intelligence, you're able not only to build relationships, but to build sustainable relationships, which is going to grow your business in the long run. A case for emotional intelligence. With research, it has been concluded that with a high IQ, you may get hired, but with a high EQ, you'll be able to get that promotion at work. With a high IQ, you can write a perfect business plan, but with a high EQ, you can turn a successful enterprise. With a high IQ, you can study principles and values. With a high EQ, you can be able to live the principles and live the values. With a high IQ, you can become a whiz at the daily work routine, but with a high EQ, you can thrive during a change and during uncertainties. With a high IQ, you can brilliantly defend your viewpoint, you can argue your point, but with a high EQ, you can listen to your heart and benefit from many other views. Now, some of the benefits of emotional intelligence is the ability to make sound decisions, the ability to think objectively under difficult circumstances, the ability to take charge, the ability to earn respect of your staff, of your peers, of the people in your industry, ability to manage your stress levels, enhance self-confidence, and of course, dealing with difficult customers. Now, one particular aspect that is important in emotional intelligence is what we call locus of control. There are 2 elements based on the locus of control, which is the internals. These are the type of people who take charge, the types who believe that they're in control of their destinies. And the externals are those who see their lives as being controlled by circumstances and outside forces. And people who are mainly proactive are people who take charge, and people who always have an option, and people who always make a plan. But externals are people who will always blame, people who always judge, and people who will always see fault in other people and not taking responsibility and accountability of any situation that they might find themselves in. Now, moving on to customer service. Customer service basics, we know that we only have one boss, literally, and that boss is the customer. Whether you're a shoe cleaner, whether you're a CEO of a big corporate, the boss is always the customer. Literally, everything we do, every concept perceived, every technology developed, and associate employed is directed or with one objective, and the objective is really to please the customer and to keep the customer satisfied. The three key elements of a basic customer service would be: expand your definition of service. What is service? How do you define service within your work environment? Being of service. And service is really not just an exchange of money and a product, an exchange of money and service. But service is when you leave a customer with a feeling of satisfaction that their needs have been met. Who are your customers? You need to understand who your customers are. Customers are people that want you to hold them by their hand during decision making, during the process. Customers are people who want to feel important. They're people who want to feel that you value their business. Developing a customer-friendly approach, there are two critical elements in developing that, and one element is your communication skills. The other element is also relationships. That's building rapport through your communication skills, and also building a friendly approach towards your customers. What customer service mean? When you talk about customer service, you're also looking at accountability plus delivery, which is a customer service. Now, the service qualities in terms of customer service, you're looking at one, professionalism. We're looking at friendliness, we're looking at empathy, we're looking at fairness, we're looking at control. And on the issue of control, customers really want to feel that they had something to do with the decision that has been made. So customers want to feel in control of the process. They want you to make them feel that the interaction that they have with you has got a bearing in the decision that have made. And customers want to deal with a person that they can trust with the information, and a person that they trust with the knowledge of the processes and the information or the products and services that has been rendered. Customer service qualities, we have already touched a little bit on that. Now, the simple actions in terms of customer service, they reap huge rewards and huge returns. Now, customers will spend about 10% more for the same product with a better service. So really the differentiator between any particular industry is the service. Same product could be sold, but customers are willing to spend more money where they are happy and where they are satisfied with their service. And when the experience is positive, customers are likely to spend more money there. So it is often not the what you articulate, but how it is presented. What you wear, how you express yourself, has a lot to do with what you say and what is being received. Little interpersonal actions and interpersonal skills and how you relate to the customer mean a great deal in the area of customer relations. And this would include eye contact. And we know that with eye contact, that also in certain instances, cultural differences and cultural dynamics. This is where emotional intelligence comes into play, because you're able to read the person's mood, you're able to read the person's personality, and you'll be able to sort of adjust yourself according to the person that you might be interacting with. Tone of voice is also one simple action which has huge returns. Being attentive, as we said earlier, that customers want to feel important and they want to know that you're really listening to what they are saying and you're really listening to their needs, and they want to feel that the decision that would be made at the end of any interaction had something to do with the input that they had put across. Posture and personal space also has one aspect that has got some cultural differences. So it's important that you pay attention to that non-verbal communication, so that you can also be respectful to other people's cultures, but you're also able to interact with people from different cultural backgrounds. Gestures are also important because they also have huge returns, simple as they are. Shaking of hands, etc., is also important in terms of the huge returns that it would bring in terms of the interaction with the customer. Now, all of that has been mentioned also creates a positive experience for the customer, because they feel welcomed in your space, but they also feel that they are important and you value their business. Now, looking at communication, we'll be looking at conversations over the telephone. It's not what you say, as you said earlier, but it is how you say it. So a flat tone of voice might indicate to the customer that you're not interested, you don't like your job, you don't want to be there, you'd rather be somewhere else. A slow pitch and presentation say, I'm sad, I'm lonely, please leave me alone. A high pitch or rapid voice to say, I'm enthusiastic and I'm excited about my job, and I'm here to help and I'm here to assist. A loud voice says, I'm angry and I'm aggressive. So pay attention also to how you communicate over the phone with the customer so that it is not interpreted in a manner in which it was not intended. Looking at the basic telephone etiquette, the telephone is often one first or one last a customer comes in contact with an organization or a company. So answering the telephone and how the company answers the phone can tell a lot about their customer service and how they treat customers and employees. Pick up the phone in 3 rings. Because it goes beyond 3 rings, then the environment is seen as being unprofessional and unattentive to customers. Greetings and introduce yourself to the company. This creates a point of contact, or rather a point of connection with the customers, when there's a warm greeting, introducing yourself and also introducing your company, so that the customer can know that they're actually in professional hands and they've actually called an organization that they can trust with their business and with their money. We also communicate via email, but there are a few aspects that you also need to pay attention to in terms of email etiquette. Use meaningful and appropriate subject headings. Start the email by greeting the recipient by name, if you know their name. If not so, then you can say, Dear Ma'am, Dear Sir. Don't type full sentences in capital letters, because this gives an impression that you're really shouting at the customer. Avoid the use of too much punctuation and use correct grammar. Please use the spelling check so that the spelling is also correct. Too much punctuation can really change the meaning of what you are trying to say. Be as brief and detailed as possible. Ideally, keep your emails in bullet points so that you don't go around an issue, but you really can focus on the issue at hand, but also indicate to the person you're communicating to what this information is about and what you need them to do about the information that you're offering them. Keep in mind that it takes longer or a long time to download some of the attachments that you might have, so don't expect feedback immediately. And also keep in mind that sending too many emails, it might be seen as information overload. So keep it brief, give the attachment also as brief. Don't be tempted to constantly copy other people in case they might need that information, because if they don't need that information, then that will go into the trash bin. Respond to your emails promptly and as professionally as you can. Ideally, every email should be responded twice a day. Every email, you should check your emails in the morning and also midday and probably in the afternoon before knocking off, so that all the emails of the day would be attended to. Even if it means just acknowledging to say, I have received your emails, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. That is a response for that particular period. We know that good impressions go a long way, so make the good impressions last. And remember, first impressions count, and you don't want to get a second chance to make a first impression. Here are some of the ways of creating a positive impression, and some of which have already been discussed. Thoughtfulness in meeting the customer's needs, personal responsibility for a customer, quick problem solving for customer, offering immediate assistance to the customer, friendliness, using customer's name in a conversation, a pleasant voice tone, polite and courteous manners, neatness, and a genuine smile. Some of the negative impressions that we might want to avoid in terms of customer interaction: making the customer wait. It's also seen as being unprofessional, but might also give the customer an impression that you don't really value them and you don't value their business. Not answering the phone promptly also gives an impression that you're unprofessional and very disorganized. Not saying please and not saying thank you might be seen as not only being disrespectful, but a lack of manners. Speaking loudly or condescending to customers or colleagues. Making faces, frowning, acting distant, and not smiling, it's also a negative. Remember that earlier we spoke about emotional intelligence. So when you have that non-verbal communication that is not positive, it can also be picked up by the customer or the person that you're interacting with. And that kind of interaction may not be productive for the two of you. Looking unkept, or like you do not care about yourself or your appearances, it's also a negative, because people want to look at something that is pleasant to their eyes, but also something that looks professional for the environment within which they operate in. A poor handshake might also be misinterpreted or interpreted as having lack of self-confidence. And when customers don't have confidence in you, chances are they don't have confidence in your products, and they won't have confidence in the services that you're selling. Focusing on another task while addressing or serving a customer is also rude, but also very unprofessional, and it also gives a negative impression. So those should also be avoided. Now, there are 10 major do's and don'ts of customer service. What you say may make or break a service interaction with a customer. The word no, I think no one really likes to hear the word no, because it's negative, it's discouraging, it's demotivating. So instead of saying no to the customer, rather say, let's see what we can do, and really offer some alternatives. If the customer wants A, you don't have A, you offer an alternative. You can say, I can give you B. I don't know also give the customer an impression that you don't know your products, you don't know your services. So the customer will not have that confidence in whatever that you're providing. Instead of saying, I don't know to the customer, rather say, I will find that information for you, then I'll get back to you, because that means that you're really interested in meeting the customer's needs. That's not my job, or that's not my department. It's also a no-no. Rather refer the customer to the person who is responsible for that particular request that they have. You are right, that is bad. You cannot really say that to the customer, because that would mean that you'll be talking badly about your department or other people's department. Rather say, I understand your frustration. I am sorry that you were not assisted in department A, but let's see what we can do for you in this scenario. And the way to calm down, really, when somebody says to you, calm down, sometimes it really makes you even more angry. So instead of saying calm down, rather empathize with the customer. Say, I understand your frustration. I am sorry for the inconvenience caused. And I am sorry doesn't necessarily mean that you take the blame, but you're really saying to the customer that I am sorry that what we have done or what has happened makes you feel the way that you are feeling. But I'm here to assist, and I'm willing to help you further. I'm busy right now. We know that we're bombarded with a lot of customer requests, a lot of customer challenges and problems. And sometimes when you're busy with one customer, the other customer is calling and the other customer is at the door. So really you are busy at that moment. But it is not appropriate for you to be saying to the customer, I am busy right now, because you're shutting the customer out. Instead of saying I'm busy right now, rather say to the customer, give me a few moments. I'm still attending to 1 or 2 issues. I'll get back to you as soon as I am done with these 3 issues. Or rather say to the customer, can we please make an appointment at an appropriate time so that we can be able to sit down and discuss the challenges or the problems that you might be facing. Call me back, it's also a no-no. You don't do that to your customer. Rather, you call the customer back, because the customer, as you said earlier, it is the boss. So you have a responsibility to call the customer, not the other way around. That's not my fault. As we spoke earlier, when we spoke about emotional intelligence, we said people who are externals are always blaming and always looking outside instead of taking accountability and responsibility. So you don't want to be telling your customer that it is not your fault. Rather say to the customer, let me see how I can rectify the situation. You need to talk to my supervisor. That is a cliche in bad customer service. No one wants to be referred to a supervisor. Rather say to the customer, let me get the correct information for you, then get back to you. Because when you say you need to talk to my supervisor, then you're sending the customer from where they are to go and find the information somewhere else. So rather be the catalyst to find that information on the customer's behalf and really provide them with the correct information. And another don't is when customers are bombarding us with a whole lot of requests, and sometimes customers can really be unrealistic, especially when it comes to time frames. When they want something, they want it now. So instead of saying to the customer, you want it by when, rather say to the customer that I need a little bit more time to get this information done so that I can provide you with the utmost professional and quality service. Or rather say to the customer that let me check if that is feasible for me to provide that information or provide that service service for you in the time frame that you have required. So you build that relationship with the customer so that there is that interaction of building but also of trusting, to say the customer will trust that you will be able to provide the services and you're not just snubbing them. Solving the customer's problems. Now, customers sometimes have got a whole lot of challenges, a whole lot of problems, and some of the problems that they bring to our table, they've got really nothing to do with our product or our service, but it's still our responsibility to be professional in terms of how we interact with the customers. So ideally, you should ask the necessary questions to get more complete information and a complete picture of the situation. Find out exactly what the customer needs for you to do for them. Explain first what you can do, and then gently add what you cannot do. Gently being the operative word, because what you cannot do might be seen as a negative from the customer's perspective. So you've got to be careful in terms of how you communicate what you cannot do, but first starting with what you can do to assist the customer. Discuss in detail the options and then decide what needs to be done in terms of the actions, who's going to do what are the time frames, when are you getting back to the customer with the feedback, and so forth. Undertake immediate action in terms of what has been discussed so that you can implement the decisions immediately. Check the results to make sure the customer is completely satisfied. Now, getting feedback from the customer is of utmost importance, because this is the information that you need to improve not only your customer service, but also to improve the relation with the customer that you already have. Now, there are several philosophies that have been researched in terms of how to improve your customer experience. And we all know that experience is the differentiator also in terms of the services that has been provided. What you say may make or break a service or the interaction with a customer. So the first philosophy is that experience is not just about the what, but also about the how. Your customer experience drive a value for your organization. That if you want to improve a customer experience, it would also drive a value for your organization. Emotions are also a huge part of any customer experience. In fact, according to research, it accounts for over half of an experience. Think of yourself as a customer in any service that you might want to get in a car dealership, in a bookshop. When you're a customer, what emotions are being evoked from the experience that you have there? One example that comes to head is when you go to exclusive books. When you get in there, the environment, the ambience there, you've got bright, beautiful bean bags there where you can just grab a book, go and sit down. There's a coffee shop next door. So really the experience there is positive, and it says spends money here. So when you've got that positive experience, chances are you will trust that they can provide the services that you want and the products that you want, but also you will go back to that particular environment because your experience there has been that of a positive, and it's in that of a satisfactory. Still continuing on philosophies to improve your customer experience. Customer experience is about how customers consciously and unconsciously perceive their experience. Now and again, it's important to do some kind of dipstick in terms of the feedback, how the customers are perceiving their experience in terms of the interaction with you. And that feedback is also important in terms of improving your customer service skills, but also improving your customer services that you're providing to your customers. Getting employees on board is a critical to your success as in terms of customer experience. Now, when employees are buying to the customer experience brand, it's easy for them to implement that particular brand. So employees are also very important in terms of getting onto board in terms of the customer experience, because policies are there, procedures are there, but the person that the customer interacts with is actually your employees vis-a-vis your policies and your procedures. So it's important that employees are also on board in terms of the brand of the customer experience. Now, customer service skills that matter would include some that we have already discussed earlier, but some would be patience. It pays to be patient with the customer. As we said earlier, customers sometimes come with needs that we really cannot attend to, but sometimes with problems that are not necessarily within our scope. So it helps to be patient. So you give the customer an opportunity to say what they need to say, to vent if they need to vent patiently. Attentiveness also is important because it gives a customer an impression that they are important and you value their business. Clear communication skills, as indicated earlier, that also pay attention to your non-verbal communication. That is your eye contact, that is your tone of voice, that is your gestures, that is your facial expressions when you have face-to-face communications. But also paying attention to your email etiquette, as indicated, and paying attention to your telephone etiquette as well. Knowledge of the product is also important. It matters a lot in terms of customer service. Your acting skills, and really here we know that sometimes we've got customers that are not easy to please, customers that are grumpy all the time, customers that are natural complainers, and sometimes it takes a lot from you to keep that cheerful persona, but it's important that you bring that on board. You're cheerful all the time so that you can take on the energy of the complainant and the energy of the customer that is always grumpy, but always feel them welcome. And ideally, when they leave, in terms of the interaction that they have, they must leave with a positive mindset. Time management skills is also very important in terms of customers, as we said earlier, can be demanding when it comes to time frames. So it's important that you also respect the time, but you also are able to manage our time. We can prioritize what is important, and we can also prioritize in terms of the customers that we need to attend to in any given time. Ability to reach customers. When we spoke earlier about emotional intelligence, we said some of the things you should be able to, in terms of the benefits of emotional intelligence or emotional maturity, is that you can read the non-verbal clues from your customers. So when you come to some of the skills, it's important that you read so that you can be able to then manipulate your interaction with the customers based on what you can read from them. You can read their moods, you can read their personalities, you can read their state of mind, so it gives you a better position to interact with them in a positive way. A calming presence also plays a big role. The ability to handle surprise. Customers might come with shocks and surprises, so you've got to take in within your shocks. So develop a kind of a thick skin, so to speak, or some shock therapy. So ability to be able to take any shock without necessarily showing the customer that you're really surprised about their need or shocked about what they are saying. Persuasion skills is also important. Tenacity is also important, and your closing ability is important. And closing, not necessarily closing a sale, but closing the interaction. So after every interaction, you should be able to close on a positive note where the customer feels that their needs have been addressed, but they are also satisfied about the actions that need to be taken. That is the end of our presentation today. Thank you. Please bear in mind that there will be a multiple choice questions that you will be requested to partake in and answer the questions so that you'll be able to gain some of the points.